In the sprawling Harrison mansion perched on the Upper East Side of New York City in the year 2025, where the skyline's glittering lights competed with the opulent chandeliers inside, Anna Thompson navigated her days with the quiet precision of someone who had long ago learned to blend into the shadows. At 27 years old, Anna was a young black woman whose gentle demeanor and unwavering poise had become her armor in a world that often demanded more from her than it gave. She had arrived at the mansion 2 years prior, fresh from a series of odd jobs in Brooklyn, where she grew up in a modest apartment with her single mother, who had instilled in her the value of hard work and silent endurance. Anna's hands, soft yet calloused from years of labor, moved effortlessly as she polished silverware, arranged fresh flowers in crystal vases, and ensured every corner of the vast estate gleamed under the warm glow of recessed lighting. The mansion itself was a testament to old money reinvented for the modern era. Blend of classic Beaux-Arts architecture with smart home integrations that whispered commands to dim lights or adjust temperatures. Vast marble hallways echoed faintly with the hum of automated vacuums, and the grand library, lined with leather-bound first editions and holographic displays of stock market trends, served as a sanctuary for the family's intellectual pursuits. Anna rarely ventured there unless summoned, preferring the bustling kitchen where the aroma of freshly baked bread mingled with the scent of imported herbs. Her uniform, a simple black dress with a crisp white apron, was her uniform of invisibility, allowing her to slip through rooms unnoticed by most, but not by everyone. James Harrison, the 32-year-old heir to the family's tech fortune built on innovative AI-driven investment platforms, had noticed her from the very first week. James was a man of sharp intellect and subtle charm, his days filled with board meetings in sleek Manhattan offices and evenings spent tinkering with prototypes in his private workshop. Tall and athletic from weekend hikes in the Catskills, he carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who had never known want. Yet his eyes held a depth that spoke of quiet introspection. He admired Anna not for the superficial reasons one might assume, though her warm brown eyes and graceful movements were undeniably captivating, but for the way she handled adversity with a composure he envied. In a household where tempers could flare over misplaced cufflinks or delayed deliveries, Anna's patience was a rare commodity. One morning, as she set out breakfast on the sun-drenched terrace overlooking Central Park, James paused mid-conversation, with his assistant via holographic call to thank her personally. "The arrangement is perfect, Anna," he said, his voice carrying a warmth that made her cheeks flush slightly. She nodded modestly, murmuring a soft "thank you, sir," before retreating. But the moment lingered in his mind like a melody he couldn't shake. Eleanor Harrison, James's mother and the iron-fisted matriarch of the family, observed these interactions with growing disdain. At 58, Eleanor was a force of nature, her silver-streaked hair always impeccably styled, her outfits sourced from exclusive Fifth Avenue designers that screamed power and pedigree. She had clawed her way into high society after marrying into the Harrison legacy, transforming herself from a middle-class girl from Chicago into a socialite who chaired charity galas and influenced boardroom decisions with a single arched eyebrow. To Eleanor, the staff were extensions of the mansion's machinery, efficient, replaceable, and utterly beneath notice unless they aired. But Anna's presence grated on her in ways she couldn't fully articulate at first. It started with subtle barbs disguised as corrections. "Anna, your footsteps are too heavy on the Persian rugs. We can't have them wearing unevenly," Eleanor would snap during a routine inspection of the foyer, even though Anna moved with the lightness of a dancer, trained in her youth at a community center in Harlem. Another time, when James casually praised the impeccable folding of napkins at a family lunch, Eleanor interjected sharply, "It's the laundry service's doing, not hers. Don't encourage familiarity." Anna absorbed these jabs like rain on a window pane. Letting them slide off without retort, her responses always a deferential, "Yes, ma'am." Yet inside, each word chipped away at the fortress she had built around her self-worth. Eleanor's closest confidant, Victoria Langley, a fellow socialite with a penchant for gossip over afternoon teas at the plaza, fueled the fire during one such visit. As Anna served delicate finger sandwiches on porcelain plates, Victoria leaned in, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. "She's quite striking for domestic help, isn't she?" Almost too poised. Eleanor's expression tightened, her manicured nails tapping against her teacup. "Striking? Hardly. She's adequate at best, and she'll remain just that help." Anna overheard, of course, her ears attuned to the undercurrents of the room. But she placed the tray down with unwavering steadiness, excusing herself to the pantry, where she allowed a single deep breath to steady her racing heart. James, however, was not blind to these dynamics. He had grown up under Eleanor's rigorous expectations, excelling in Ivy League schools and launching ventures that multiplied the family wealth. But he chafed at her rigid class distinctions. One evening, as twilight painted the city in hues of orange and purple, he encountered Anna in the dimly lit corridor leading to the staff quarters. She was carrying a stack of linens, her arms laden, but her posture impeccable. "You shouldn't have to endure her criticisms," he said softly, stepping aside to let her pass, but lingering just long enough to meet her gaze. Anna looked up, her eyes steady despite the surprise. "It's part of the job, Mr. Harrison. Words are just words." But James's expression hardened with resolve. "Not when they're meant to diminish you. One day, I'll make sure you see your own value beyond this role." She averted her eyes, aware of the risks in such conversations, eavesdropping walls and watchful eyes, but a flicker of hope ignited within her, warm and unfamiliar. As weeks turned into months, the mansion buzzed with preparations for an upcoming gala, a lavish event Eleanor orchestrated with the precision of a symphony conductor. Invitations went out to New York's elite, tech moguls from Silicon Alley, Wall Street financiers, and celebrities whose faces graced digital billboards across Times Square. The theme was innovation and legacy, a nod to the Harrison Empire's evolution, with holographic projections planned to showcase family milestones amid the opulent ballroom. For Eleanor, this was more than a party. It was a declaration of dominance, a stage to reinforce her control over the household and society at large. But beneath the surface, her resentment toward Anna simmered, fueled by the lingering glances James caught directing her way. She noticed how his tone softened when addressing Anna, how he lingered in rooms where she worked, ostensibly to check on details, but clearly drawn to her presence. It unnerved her, this potential breach in the carefully constructed barriers of class and status. To Eleanor, any hint of affection between her son and a staff member was a threat to the family's pristine image, a scandal waiting to erupt in the tabloid feeds of social media influencers. One afternoon, in the sunlit conservatory filled with exotic orchids imported from Asia, Eleanor summoned Anna under the guise of reviewing floral arrangements. "You've been here long enough to know your place," she said, her voice laced with ice as she inspected a blooming lily. "This is not a fairy tale where the help ascends. My son is destined for alliances that strengthen our position, not entanglements with, well, you." Anna stood still, her hands clasped before her. "I understand, ma'am. I only wish to serve." Eleanor's lips curled into a mirthless smile. "Good. Because if I sense otherwise, I'll ensure everyone sees exactly what you are." The threat hung in the air like humidity before a storm, and Anna retreated to her duties, her mind racing with the implications. She confided briefly in Maria, the other maid who had been with the family for a decade, a stout woman with a kind heart and a thick Puerto Rican accent. As they folded linens in the laundry room, steam rising from the irons, Maria whispered, "She's got it out for you, chica. Watch your back at the gala." Anna nodded, forcing a small smile. We'll just do our jobs. That's all we can control. The tension escalated in subtle ways that only those within the mansion's walls could perceive. Eleanor began assigning Anna the most menial tasks at inopportune times, scrubbing grout in the guest bathrooms during peak hours or reorganizing the wine cellar late into the night, hoping to wear her down. Yet Anna persevered, drawing on memories of her mother's resilience through financial hardships and health struggles. She found solace in small rituals, a stolen moment reading poetry on her tablet in the staff lounge, or gazing at the city lights from her attic room window, dreaming of a life where her efforts led to something more than survival. James, meanwhile, grew increasingly protective, though he masked it under professional courtesy. He intervened once when Eleanor criticized Anna's handling of a delicate antique vase, suggesting instead that the piece be moved to a safer display. "Mother, let's not blame the staff for our own clutter," he said lightly, but his eyes conveyed solidarity to Anna across the room. This only intensified Eleanor's suspicions, leading her to plot a more definitive action. In private conversations with Victoria over encrypted video calls, Eleanor was paranoid about data leaks. She vented her frustrations. "The girl thinks she's untouchable because James smiles at her. I need to remind her publicly of her station." Victoria, ever the enabler, suggested a dramatic gesture at the gala. "Make it unforgettable. Show the guests what happens when lines are crossed." Eleanor pondered this, her mind weaving a plan that would humiliate Anna without directly implicating herself in overt cruelty, at least in her own eyes. She envisioned a scenario where Anna's clumsiness would be exposed, leading to a confrontation that reinforced the hierarchy. Unbeknownst to her, this scheme would backfire spectacularly, igniting a confrontation that challenged not just her authority, but the very foundations of the family's dynamics. As the gala approached, the mansion transformed into a hive of activity. Caterers from renowned Michelin-starred restaurants delivered samples. Florists arranged towering installations of rare blooms flown in from Dutch auctions, and a string quartet rehearsed in the ballroom, their melodies floating through the air. Vents. Anna worked tirelessly alongside Maria and the butler, Mr. Reynolds, a stoic Englishman in his 60s who had served 3 generations of Harrisons. He offered Anna quiet advice. "Keep your head high, lass. The storm passes." But the air crackled with unspoken foreboding. Eleanor inspected every detail with hawk-like scrutiny, her designer heels clicking authoritatively on the parquet floors. She deliberately positioned Anna to serve the most demanding guests, hoping for a slip-up. James, sensing the undercurrents, made a point to check in on the staff preparations. In the kitchen, amid the clatter of pots and the sizzle of gourmet appetizers, he found Anna labeling trays. "If things get overwhelming, signal me," he murmured, his hand brushing hers accidentally as he adjusted a label. The touch sent a jolt through her, but she pulled back, mindful of propriety. "I'll be fine, sir. Focus on your guests." Hit his. Concern bolstered her, a silent alliance forming amid the chaos. Eleanor's plan crystallized the night before the event, alone in her opulent suite, surrounded by walls adorned with original Warhols and digital art installations. She rehearsed her words, envisioning the moment when she would seize an opportunity to expose Anna's perceived presumption. It would be swift, public, and devastating, a rip in the fabric of decorum that would leave no doubt about who held the power. Little did she know, this act would not break Anna, but reveal the fractures in her own carefully curated world, setting the stage for James's unprecedented stand. The mansion, with its gleaming facades and hidden tensions, stood on the brink of transformation, where quiet endurance would clash with entrenched privilege. And the echoes of that night would resonate far beyond the gilded walls. Anna's backstory added layers to her resilience. Orphaned at 18 after her mother's battle with cancer, She had supported herself through community college courses in hospitality, dreaming of one day managing her own bed and breakfast in upstate New York. The Harrison job was a stepping stone, paying well enough to save for that future, but it came with the price of constant vigilance. She formed tentative bonds with the other staff. Maria shared recipes from her abuela, and Mr. Reynolds regaled her with tales of past galas where mishaps turned into legends. These connections provided a buffer against Eleanor's barbs, but the matriarch's influence permeated every aspect of life in the mansion. Eleanor, for her part, was driven by insecurities rooted in her own ascent. Having married James's father, visionary entrepreneur who passed away a decade ago, she feared any dilution of the bloodline's purity. James's previous relationships had been with women from similar backgrounds, carefully vetted and ultimately discarded when they didn't align with Eleanor's vision. Anna represented an anomaly, a wild card that threatened the narrative Eleanor had scripted for her son's life. As invitations are SVPED and the guest list swelled to include venture capitalists, politicians, and even a few Hollywood A-listers filming in the city, the pressure mounted. Anna practiced her serving routes in the empty ballroom, memorizing the layout to avoid any faux pas. James watched from afar during one such rehearsal, his admiration deepening into something more profound, a recognition of shared values in a world of superficiality. He confided in his closest friend, a fellow entrepreneur named Alex, over a late-night whiskey in the study. "She's extraordinary, Alex. In a sea of entitlement, she's the real deal." Alex cautioned him about the fallout, but James was undeterred. The night before the gala, Eleanor made her final preparations, selecting a stunning emerald gown that symbolized her unyielding strength. She glanced at herself in the full-length mirror, practicing her poised smile, unaware that her actions would soon unravel the very control she cherished. Anna, in her modest room, whispered a prayer for strength, clutching a locket from her mother. The stage was set for a collision of wills, where small tensions would erupt into a defining moment, forever altering the rhythms of the Harrison mansion. The Harrison mansion, bathed in the golden glow of a crisp New York evening in 2025, stood as a beacon of wealth and influence on the Upper East Side. The gala, dubbed Innovation and Legacy, was in full swing, its grandeur amplified by holographic displays projecting the family's tech milestones across the ballroom's vaulted ceilings. Outside, sleek electric limousines lined the cobblestone driveway, their drivers exchanging hushed gossip about the evening's promise. Inside, the air thrummed with anticipation, the clink of champagne flutes mingling with the delicate strains of a string quartet tucked in a corner. The ballroom, with its polished marble floors and towering windows framing Central Park's twinkling lights, was a stage for New York's elite tech moguls in tailored suits, actresses in shimmering gowns, and financiers whose whispered deals could shift markets. Anna Thompson moved through this glittering chaos with the grace of a shadow, her black uniform blending into the periphery as she balanced trays of crystal flutes filled with vintage champagne. Her heart, however, beat like a war drum, each step measured to avoid drawing attention. Eleanor Harrison's warning from the previous day echoed in her mind. "If I sense otherwise, I'll ensure everyone sees exactly what you are." The words had settled into her bones, a reminder of the precarious line she walked in this house. Yet Anna's resolve, forged in years of overcoming hardship in Brooklyn, held firm. She had faced worse than Eleanor's disdain, evictions, late night shifts at diners, her mother's hospital bills, and she would endure this too. Her role tonight was to serve the east wing of the dining hall, a section populated by some of the most judgmental guests, including Victoria Langley, Eleanor's sharp-tongued confidant, whose diamond-encrusted bracelet caught the chandelier light like a warning signal. Anna kept her eyes low, her movements deliberate, ensuring every glass was placed with precision. Maria, her fellow maid, darted past with a tray of d'oeuvres, murmuring, "Stay sharp, Anna. She's watching." Anna nodded faintly, her lips pressed into a calm line, but her pulse quickened as she caught sight of Eleanor at the head of the room. Resplendent in her emerald gown, her smile as polished as the silverware. James Harrison, stationed near the entrance to greet late arrivals, cut a striking figure in his charcoal suit, his dark hair swept back. A Bluetooth earpiece, discreetly relaying updates from his team managing the holographic displays. He was the evening's host in more ways than one, his charm disarming even the most cynical venture capitalists. Yet his attention drifted repeatedly to Anna, catching glimpses of her as she navigated the crowd. He noticed the way she adjusted a guest's napkin with a deft touch, the way she absorbed a curt remark from an impatient heiress without flinching. It stirred something in him, not just admiration, but a fierce protectiveness that had been building for months. Earlier that day, during a quiet moment in the mansion's tech lab, where he tested algorithms for his latest AI venture, he had confided in his assistant Priya, a sharp-witted coder who doubled as his sounding board. "She's not just enduring this play, she's thriving despite it," he said, staring at a monitor displaying market predictions. Priya raised an eyebrow. "Be careful, James. Your mother's got a radar for anything that threatens her control." He had brushed it off with a laugh, but now, watching Anna weave through the crowd, he felt the weight of Priya's warning. Eleanor's presence loomed over the gala like a storm cloud, her eyes tracking Anna's every move. She sat at the head of the long dining table, a masterpiece of mahogany inlaid with mother-of-pearl, surrounded by guests who hung on her every word. Victoria Langley, seated to her right, leaned in to whisper, her voice carrying just far enough for Anna to catch as she poured wine nearby. "That girl's too composed for her station. It's almost presumptuous." Another guest, a media mogul with a penchant for stirring drama, chuckled softly. "Pretty enough to turn heads, though. Dangerous in a house like this." Eleanor's smile was razor-thin, her gaze flicking to James, who was across the room, shaking hands with a senator. She noted how his eyes followed Anna, how his posture shifted when she passed, a subtle tilt of the head, a softening of his features. It was intolerable. Eleanor had spent decades building the Harrison name into a fortress of prestige, and no maid, no matter how poised, would undermine that. She sipped her wine, her mind calculating, her plan from the previous night, now a loaded weapon ready to fire. The dinner progressed smoothly at first, with courses delivered in seamless rhythm. Smoked salmon canapes, followed by a roasted quail dish drizzled with truffle oil. Each plate a work of art, curated by a Michelin-starred chef. Anna and Maria worked in tandem, their movements synchronized like dancers in a silent ballet. Mr. Reynolds, the butler, oversaw the operation from the sidelines, his stern nod a rare sign of approval. But the air grew heavier with each passing minute, the guests' laughter growing sharper, their glances more pointed. Anna felt the scrutiny like a spotlight, especially from Victoria, who seemed to delight in testing her. "Careful with that poor dear," Victoria said as Anna refilled her glass, her tone dripping with condescension. "We wouldn't want a spill on this silk." Anna murmured an apology, her hands steady despite the jab. James, seated near the center of the table, caught the exchange, his jaw tightening imperceptibly. He had already deflected two of Eleanor's pointed remarks about the staff's performance, redirecting the conversation to the gala's charitable contributions to urban tech education. But his patience was thinning, eroded by the undercurrent of cruelty he sensed building in his mother's demeanor. Eleanor, meanwhile, bided her time, waiting for the perfect moment. She had orchestrated this night to perfection, from the curated guest list to the eye-driven lighting that shifted hues to match the mood of each course. But her true objective was not the gala's success, was to reassert her dominance, to remind everyone, especially Anna, of the unbridgeable gap between their worlds. As the main course arrived, a braised short rib with molecular gastronomy flair. She leaned toward Victoria, her voice low but deliberate. "Let's see how she handles this." Victoria's eyes gleamed with anticipation, sensing a spectacle. Brewing it happened during a lull in the conversation, as the quartet paused and the hum of voices filled the room. Anna approached Eleanor's side of the table, carrying a silver tray with a delicate porcelain tureen of sauce to accompany the short ribs. Her steps were measured, her focus absolute, aware that any misstep would be magnified under the guests' watchful eyes. Eleanor's voice cut through the din like a blade. "Stop right there." The room fell silent, forks hovering, eyes swiveling to the head of the table. Anna froze, the tray steady in her hands, her heart pounding so loudly she feared it might echo. Eleanor rose slightly from her seat, her emerald gown catching the light like armor. "Come closer," she commanded, her tone deceptively calm. Anna hesitated, then stepped forward, her training overriding her instinct to flee. The guests watched. Some with curiosity, others with discomfort, sensing the shift in the room's energy. Eleanor's eyes were cold, predatory. 2 years in this house, and you still carry yourself as if you belong among us, she said, her voice loud enough to carry to every corner of the dining hall. "Look at you, holding that tray like you're presenting an award." A few guests tittered nervously, unsure whether to laugh or recoil. Anna's cheeks burned, but she whispered, "I'm sorry, ma'am," her voice barely audible. Eleanor's hand darted out, seizing the front of Anna's apron. Before anyone could react, she yanked hard, the fabric tearing with a sharp rip that echoed like a gunshot. Gasps erupted around the table. Anna staggered back, clutching the torn apron, the tray wobbling but miraculously staying upright. Her face flushed with humiliation, her breath coming in short, sharp bursts as she fought to maintain composure. The tureen clinked softly against the tray, the only sound in the stunned silence. Victoria Langley's hand flew to her chest, her expression a mix of shock and delight. "Eleanor, really?" she exclaimed, though her tone betrayed her amusement. The other guests exchanged uneasy glances, some shifting in their seats, others staring at their plates as if to avoid the scene. Anna stood rooted, appeased her mind a whirl of shame and survival instincts. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the marble floor and escape the weight of 100 eyes. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "Hold your head up, baby. They can't take your soul." But the sting of the torn fabric, the exposure of her vulnerability before this glittering crowd, threatened to unravel her. Then a sharp scrape broke the silence. James's chair, sliding back against the marble. He stood slowly, his movements deliberate, his face a mask of calm that belied the fury in his eyes. Every head turned to him, the room holding its breath. He unbuttoned his suit jacket with steady hands, slipped it off, and crossed the short distance to Anna in 3 strides. Without a word, he draped the jacket over her shoulders, covering the torn apron, his hands lingering briefly to steady her trembling arms. The gesture was tender, protective, a silent declaration that shifted the room's dynamic. "Mother," he said, his voice low but resonant, cutting through the tension like a blade. That was uncalled for. Eleanor's lips parted, her composure cracking for the first time that evening. "You humiliated her for no reason other than your own prejudice," James continued, turning to face his mother directly, his words measured but heavy with conviction. "You've shown this room not strength, but cruelty, and I will not stand for it." The silence deepened, oppressive, as the guests processed the audacity of his words. A tech CEO coughed awkwardly, a socialite clutched her wineglass too tightly, and Victoria's smile faltered, her eyes darting between mother and son. Eleanor tried to interject, her voice sharp but unsteady. "James, you forget yourself." He raised a hand, cutting her off. a gesture so uncharacteristic that it stunned her into silence. "No, Mother, you forgot yourself. This house, this name is not built on tearing others down, and I will not let it be." Anna, still clutching the tray, felt tears prick her eyes, but she held them back, drawing strength from James's words. His jacket, warm and smelling faintly of cedarwood cologne, was a shield against the room's judgment. She whispered, "Thank you, sir," her voice barely audible. James glanced at her, his expression softening. "You don't thank someone for basic decency," he said firmly. His words aimed as much at the guests as at her. The moment hung in the air, a turning point that no one could ignore. The quartet resumed playing, a hesitant melody that failed to ease the tension. Guests began to murmur, some in shock, others in quiet admiration. A venture capitalist leaned toward his wife, whispering, "The boy's got spine." Another guest, a philanthropist known for her progressive views, nodded faintly, her eyes lingering on Anna with newfound respect. Eleanor sat back, her face pale, her hands gripping the arms of her chair as if to anchor herself. Her plan had backfired spectacularly. Instead of cementing her authority, she had exposed her pettiness, and James's defiance had turned the tables. The dinner limped on. But the mood had shifted irreversibly. Guests picked at their food, their conversations subdued, the holographic displays now seeming garish rather than grand. Anna retreated to the kitchen under Mr. Reynolds's discreet guidance, where Maria enveloped her in a quick hug. "Stood tall, Mia," she whispered. Anna shook her head, her voice trembling. "I only stood because he did." But Maria's eyes were fierce. "No, you've held your ground before he even moved. That's you." In the dining hall, Eleanor forced a smile, engaging Victoria in small talk about the dessert Corsa molecular gastronomy. Creation of edible foam and gold leaf, but her voice was brittle, her authority shaken. James returned to his seat, his demeanor calm but resolute, fielding questions from guests with a politeness that masked his inner turmoil. The gala continued, but its heart had been pierced. Word of the incident spread like wildfire through the mansion's digital channels. Servants whispering in group chats, guests posting cryptic updates to their private social feeds. By midnight, as the last limousines pulled away, the mansion felt less like a fortress of prestige and more like a battleground where old hierarchies had been challenged. Anna, in the quiet of the staff corridor, clutched James's jacket, her fingers tracing its seams. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in the Harrison mansion, she felt seen not as a maid, but as a woman whose dignity could not be torn away. The night had exposed Eleanor's cruelty, but it had also revealed James's courage, setting the stage for a reckoning that would echo beyond the gilded walls, into the city's gossip mills and the hearts of those who witnessed it. The Harrison mansion, still reeling from the seismic events of the gala, seemed to hold its breath in the days that followed. By the morning after, the Upper East Side's digital gossip channels buzzed with fragmented accounts of Eleanor Harrison's outburst and James's bold defense of Anna Thompson, the quiet maid who had unwittingly become the center of a social storm. New York's elite, accustomed to scandals that fizzled out in a news cycle, found this one lingered, whispered about in private group chats and encrypted forums. The mansion itself, with its marble corridors and smart home hum, felt different, less a fortress of untouchable wealth and more a stage where human truths had been laid bare. Anna, still wearing her neatly mended uniform, moved through her duties with the same quiet precision, but her steps carried a new weight. The memory of Eleanor's hand tearing her apron, the sting of public humiliation, and James's jacket shielding her from the guest stares played in her mind like a looped hologram. In the staff quarters, tucked beneath the mansion's attic eaves, she sat alone at dawn, her fingers tracing the locket her mother had given her, a simple silver oval etched with a tiny star. A reminder of resilience through lean years in Brooklyn. Anna had always seen her job at the Harrison estate as a means to an end, a way to save for her dream of owning a small inn upstate, where she could offer warmth and rest to travelers. But now, caught in the crosshairs of Eleanor's wrath and James's unexpected allegiance, she felt exposed, as if the mansion's walls themselves were watching her. Maria, the other maid, slipped into the room with a thermos of coffee, her eyes soft with concern. "You're up early, chica," she said, pouring Anna a cup. "Couldn't sleep," Anna admitted, her voice low. Maria sat beside her, the wooden chair creaking under her weight. "What you did out there standing tall after she tried to break youth, that's not nothing. The whole staff's talking about it. Even Reynolds gave you that look, you know, the one where his mustache twitches." Anna managed a faint smile, but her thoughts were elsewhere. Tangled in the memory of James's words, "You don't thank someone for basic decency." It was the first time anyone in this house had seen her not as a function, but as a person. Yet it came with a cost. The other staff, from the gardeners to the tech crew managing the mansion's AI systems, treated her differently, now some with cautious respect, others with wary distance, as if her proximity to James made her a lightning rod. "They think I planned this," Anna murmured. Maria shook her head fiercely. "Let them think what they want. You didn't ask for any of this." But James, he chose to stand up. That's on him, and it's changing things. James, meanwhile, was grappling with the fallout in his own way. In his private study, a sleek room lined with touchscreen panels and a 3D printer humming in the corner. He reviewed analytics from his latest AI venture, but his focus wavered. The gala had been a professional triumph ledges for the urban tech education fund had exceeded expectations, but it was overshadowed by the personal reckoning. He had defied his mother in front of New York's most influential players, a move that could ripple through boardrooms and social circles alike. His phone buzzed with messages from allies and skeptics, a venture capitalist praising his noble streak, a gossip columnist hinting at a Harrison family rift for her next post. James ignored them, his thoughts on Anna. He admired her not just for her grace under pressure, but for the way she carried her dreams quietly, like a flame no one could extinguish. He had learned, through snippets of conversation with Maria and overheard staff chatter, about Anna's aspirations for her in her late-night studies in hospitality management. Her unwavering commitment to her mother's memory. It made his own privilege feel both heavier and more purposeful. He wanted to protect her, not just from Eleanor's cruelty, but from the world's tendency to diminish those who served. Yet he knew his actions had painted a target on her back. Eleanor, sequestered in her suite, was not one to let a public slight go unanswered. Her silence since the gala was ominous, a calm before a calculated storm. James confided in Alex, his entrepreneur friend, over a secure video call, the city's skyline glowing through the study's windows. "I couldn't let it slide, Alex." She crossed a line. Alex, nursing a whiskey in his own downtown loft, sighed. "You did the right thing, but you've started a war. Your mother's not just fighting for control, she's fighting for the Harrison legacy." Anna's caught in the middle. James's jaw tightened. "Then I'll make sure she's not collateral damage." Anna's days became a delicate dance of avoidance. She took on tasks in the mansion's quieter corners, de-aging the archive. Room filled with vintage tech patents, restocking the pantry with artisanal preserves, hoping to stay out of Eleanor's orbit. But the matriarch's presence was inescapable. Eleanor emerged from her suite on the third morning, her silver hair pulled into a severe bun, her tailored blazer signaling a return to command. She inspected the mansion with renewed vigor, issuing orders to the staff via the house's AI assistant, which projected her voice through hidden speakers. The East Wing linens are subpar. Replace them by noon, she snapped, her eyes lingering on Anna as she passed through the foyer. Anna kept her head down, folding napkins with mechanical precision, but she felt the weight of Eleanor's gaze, like a physical force. The other staff noticed it too. Mr. Reynolds, polishing a silver candelabra, gave Anna a subtle nod, as if to say, "Hold steady." But the tension was palpable, a current running through every interaction. At night, in the staff lounge, Maria shared rumors she'd overheard from the tech crew. They say Eleanor's been on calls with her PR team, spinning the gala story to paint herself as the victim of an overzealous son. Anna's stomach churned. She didn't want to be the wedge driving James and his mother apart. But she also couldn't unsee the truth his actions had revealed, that dignity wasn't tied to wealth or status. That night, alone in her attic room, she opened her tablet and scrolled through listings for small properties in the Hudson Valley. Her dream of an in-feeling, both closer and impossibly distant. A notification pinged an anonymous message through the staff's internal chat system. "You're stronger than you know. Don't let her win." Anna's breath caught, suspecting it might be from Maria or even Mr. Reynolds, but the anonymity gave it a universal weight, as if the mansion itself was rooting for her. James, determined to shield Anna, sought her out. In the kitchen the next morning, where she was arranging trays for a board meeting Eleanor had scheduled with local investors. The kitchen, with its stainless steel counters and aroma of fresh rosemary, was a rare haven from the mansion's grandeur. James entered quietly, his casual sweater a stark contrast to the formal suits he wore for guests. "Anna," he said, his voice gentle but firm, "I need you to know that what happened wasn't your fault." She froze, a tray of croissants in her hands, her eyes meeting his briefly before dropping. "Mr. Harrison, you don't need to." He stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. "It's James, and I do need to. This house, my family, should be a place where you're respected, not attacked." Anna set the tray down, her fingers trembling slightly. "Respect doesn't come with the job, sir. I learned that long ago." Her honesty disarmed him, and he leaned against the counter, searching for the right words. "Maybe it should, and I'm going to make sure it does, starting with you." Anna's heart raced, a mix of gratitude and fear. "If you keep defending me, it'll only make things harder." She already thinks she stopped, but James finished for her. "That I care about you. She's not wrong." The admission hung between them, raw and unguarded. Anna's breath hitched, her training urging her to retreat, but something in James's steady gaze held her there. Before she could respond, the AI assistant chimed, announcing Eleanor's approach. James straightened, his expression hardening. "This isn't over," he said softly, then left the kitchen as Eleanor's heels clicked closer. Eleanor confronted James in the grand sitting room, a space adorned with digital art that shifted to reflect her mood today, stormy grays and jagged lines. "You've embarrassed this family," she said, her voice low but venomous, her hands clasped tightly as if restraining her fury. "Defending a maid over your own mother in front of our peers. Do you understand the damage?" James stood by the fireplace, its holographic flames flickering silently. "The damage was done when you humiliated an innocent woman to prove a point. Anna didn't deserve that." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "Anna, you speak her name like she's an equal. She's a servant, James, a nobody." His voice was steel. "She's more than you'll ever see because you're too busy guarding a name that means nothing without integrity." The words struck Eleanor like a physical blow, her composure faltering. She had raised James to uphold the Harrison legacy, to navigate boardrooms and galas with finesse, but this defiance was new, a crack in the foundation she had built. "You'd risk our standing for her?" she asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. James met her gaze unflinchingly. "I'd risk it for what's right. Love, respect, Those are what give our name worth, not your rules." Eleanor turned away, her breath uneven, the weight of his words sinking in. For the first time, she felt the ground shift beneath her. The control she had wielded for decades slipping through her fingers. The city's gossip mills churned relentlessly. By midweek, posts on exclusive social platforms framed the gala as a clash of generations, with James cast as a progressive hero and Eleanor as a relic of outdated elitism. A tech blogger with a massive following praised James's quiet courage, while a society columnist hinted at tensions in the Harrison dynasty. The staff, too, shifted in their perceptions. Maria, emboldened by the incident, began advocating for better staff benefits, whispering to Anna about unionizing. Mr. Reynolds, ever the traditionalist, offered Anna a rare compliment. "You've stirred something, lass. Don't let it scare you." Even the tech crew, usually detached in their server rooms, began addressing Anna by name, a small but significant shift. Anna, however, felt no triumph. Tension made her uneasy, her dream of a quiet life at odds with the spotlight now on her. She avoided James when possible, fearing further escalation. But their paths crossed inevitably in the mansion's labyrinthine halls. One evening, as she tended to the rooftop gardenia, tranquil space with hydroponic herbs and views of the city, he found her pruning rosemary under solar-powered lights. "You don't have to hide from me," he said, his voice soft but insistent. Anna set down her shears, her hands steady despite her racing pulse. "I'm not hiding, Mr. Harrison. I'm just trying to do my job." He stepped closer, the city's glow framing him. "And I'm trying to show you that you're more than your job. I see you on your strength, your dreams. And I love you for it." The confession stole her breath. Her heart caught between fear and a warmth she hadn't dared name. "You can't say that," she whispered. "Not here, not now." James smiled, undeterred. "I'll say it until you believe it." A week after the gala, Eleanor summoned Anna to her suite, an unprecedented move that sent ripples of unease through the staff. The room, with its silk drapes and minimalist furniture, felt like a tribunal. Eleanor sat by a window, the city skyline a stark backdrop, her usual pearls replaced by a simple gold chain, her face lined with fatigue. "Sit," she said, her voice lacking its usual edge. Anna remained standing, her hands clasped. "I'd rather not, ma'am." Eleanor studied her, a flicker of something regret, perhaps crossing her features. "Do you think I despise you?" she asked. Anna said nothing, her silence a shield. Eleanor sighed, her gaze distant. "I built this life on control, on keeping everything in its place. You, with your quiet strength, disrupted that. Not because of who you are, but because of what you represent, a world where my rules don't hold." Anna's voice was steady. "I never wanted to disrupt, ma'am. I just wanted to work." Eleanor's eyes glistened, a rare crack in her armor. "And yet, my son sees in you what I've spent a lifetime ignoring: humanity over hierarchy." When he stood against me, I felt powerless for the first time. Anna's hands trembled, but she held her ground. "I don't want power, ma'am. I want peace." Eleanor nodded, almost imperceptibly. "Perhaps that's why he loves you." She dismissed Anna with a wave, turning back to the window, her reflection a portrait of a woman grappling with her own obsolescence. That evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, painting the mansion in hues of amber, James found Anna in the garden again. He wore no jacket, just a simple shirt, his vulnerability as clear as his resolve. "My mother may never fully accept us," he said, "but I don't care. I love you, Anna, and I won't let fear silence that." Anna's breath caught, her heart pounding. "And what do you feel, James?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. His smile was a promise. "That you're my future, if you'll have me." the mansion with its glittering chandeliers. And whispered secrets stood unchanged, but its soul had shifted. Eleanor's attempt to break Anna had instead revealed James's heart. And in that revelation, Anna found not just love, but a strength she had always carried. The city whispered its story, but within these walls, the truth was clear. Dignity endures, and love redefines legacy.